Before you jump, it's the scariest thing in the world. You're shaking, you're second-guessing yourself. But the second your feet leave that cliff, it's just, you've never been more present in your life. There's nothing quite like being able to fly. When you have a wingsuit on and you're flying next to a mountain, you can feel how fast you are. You feel like you're Superman. I mean, the closest thing I could resemble it to is imagine if you got superpowers and you could fly wherever you wanted. It feels exactly like that, like you have superpowers. It's a shame that it comes with all these risks, losing friends. But that's really not what it's about. It's about just living to the fullest extent. I love it. I can't stop.
Okay, and just put your hands up. Are you rolling in?
Yeah.
Put your hands up in front of your face, Johnny, and clap once. Thank you.
So, Johnny, just introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you live? And what do you do?
My name is Johnny Strange. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I'm a wingsuit base jumper.
So, how long have you been doing this?
I've been wingsuit flying and base jumping since I was a teenager. I'm 23 years old now, and this will be my 6th season base jumping.
Talk a little bit about the mythology around C6.
Being a base jumper, a lot of people have a negative image of the sport because of all the deaths and all the injuries. And one study found the average life expectancy of a base jumper is 6 years before they quit, or even worse, get killed. So this being my 6th season, I think has my family a little nervous and people a little nervous, but I've never met somebody in the sport who has a death wish. It's all about science. To me, I love the science, and I love that I have complete control. People may not like what I do, but the parachute doesn't just malfunction. It's human error that gets people killed. And I want to do it until, I'm 90 years old.
He was always kind of a danger to himself because he just wasn't afraid. When he was 2, in my bedroom, he jumped off the chair, hit the bed frame, called the paramedics, they came, and we ended up just driving him to the hospital ourselves. They put us in a room, there was a gurney, he's always running around the gurney, and he trips and falls, hits the bottom of the gurney, gets another thing, blood is spewing out of his head, and I'm screaming, and they come and they're like, okay, fine, we're gonna see you right now, because they wanted us out of their hospital. 8 days later, he jumps off a chair in the living room, basically saying he can fly again, hits the bottom of the door frame of the door, another big gash in his head. We go to the hospital, and it was the same hospital staff, and I just said, they're gonna report us to child services, and at that moment I thought, oh my God, no, I can't. What am I supposed to do with this kid?
This is the gnarliest thing I've seen in a while. I don't know if this video can do it justice, but that's a pretty hardcore gap with some concrete at the edge. If anyone can do it, it's gonna be Trevor's fucking crazy ass. We're gonna go for it, see what happens.
I'm Trevor Jacob. I'm 22 years old. I'm Johnny Strange's best friend, and I am an Olympic athlete in the discipline of snowboarding. My first memories of Johnny was when we were younger, just to go out and see what we could physically accomplish, because it was just like this strong brotherly bond that was just there.
Trevor and Johnny grew up together, being kind of the wild boys that, everybody in the Malibu area talked about. They were just, 2 peas in a pod.
I would say Johnny was a living legend among his friends. I think among some of the parents, he was probably their worst nightmare.
He told me all the time that fear is just an emotion.
Johnny just did things. Johnny did things that other people thought couldn't be done.
Super positive, so full of energy.
Johnny's just, he's a force of nature.
Every time you see Johnny and there's something that he's excited about doing, he's gonna give you the quintessential Johnny, which is a clap of the hands, and then a rub of the hands, and then a big ass grin.
Stoke, dude. The Stoke. Good friends, good adventures.
He's always, living life to the fullest and being the most adventurous he can and loving life along the way.
I don't know if you've seen pictures of him at his graduation from high school where he lit a cigar on stage and walked across. And the people in the audience, half were laughing and half were mortified.
I see the kids walking and Johnny's coming up. I'm like, oh, he's not, oh, he's doing that.
Johnny Strange.
He lights up a cigar and blows smoke right as he's getting his diploma. And I'm part of me, part of me as the administrator is mortified. The other part is like, oh my God, did he just do that? Oh my God, he just did that.
We were on a boat and he went to the front of it and made that pose and took a picture of it. And then, how many years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, against my wishes, he and his sister went paragliding. And you look at the man in charge of the flight, and he's looking at the camera smiling. And you look at Johnny, and he's doing the same pose, arms out, eyes closed, face up. And it's the same pose that when he's wingsuiting, it's the same pose. And he'd been doing that pose, ever since he was 4 years old. Every little thing he did was working up to was just leading him right into being a wingsuit pilot.
So how did this all begin for you? You've been an adventurer, you've been a climber. Tell me a little bit about your history.
It all starts with my parents. My parents were both hardcore adventurers.
I think Johnny definitely comes by this very naturally. Obviously, his parents are risk takers and they're adventurous and they are full of passion. Johnny embodies probably the most extreme of both of them.
When I was 12, I climbed the tallest mountain in Antarctica, and the youngest person to do that was 23. So I broke that record by a bunch of years, and it caused a bunch of drama in the climbing community. And I kept climbing and climbing, and by the time I was 17, I climbed the tallest mountain on every continent.
Earlier this month, my next guest climbed to the top of Mount Everest to become the youngest person in the world to have scaled the highest peaks on each continent. Please welcome 17-year-old Johnny Strange. When did you start climbing?
When I was 12, my dad was going on this big expedition because both my parents climb. And, I was like, I want to come.
It's crazy to me because I would not go with my father to the dry cleaners, when I was 15.
The first mountain we climbed in Vincent was just, here's a trip, son, let's do it together and see what happens. But I found this article about that climb, and it reminds me of how young Johnny was when he was 12. He still has his bowl haircut and his coat's too big for him, but you can tell on his face, even from this picture, that he's serious about doing this mountain.
I met Johnny. He's joined our Vincent climb, which is the highest mountain in Antarctica. And I was pretty amazed. He was a young man. I mean, he was 12 years old when I met him. The feeling amongst the team members was that, oh, we got a kid on the group. No, this is gonna be a drag. But Johnny proved pretty quickly that he could carry his own load and he could hold his own in a conversation with any one of those guys.
He turned 13 on that trip, and I had given him an ice axe for his birthday. But ice axe crampons clipped in, there are crevasses, it's freezing down there. It's only when you look back and realize, gosh, he was so little. But he was just always so sure and competent and confident that it never seemed like a wrong decision.
It's 40 below. That summit's one of the coldest summits there are on Earth. I think probably the coldest place on Earth in the wintertime.
I remember a guy talking to me on that climb saying, boy, has your son ever climbed before? And I said, no, this is his first mountain. He said, boy, he's super strong.
Johnny marched right up that thing as a 12-year-old, like it was nothing. And then somehow Johnny started focusing on, I want to climb the 7 summits.
I want to be the youngest to do them. Right now, there's a few other people trying to do that.
You have climbed 7 of the highest peaks. Now, was Everest, Mount Everest, is that the hardest?
Yeah, I think Everest is the hardest just because the mental aspect.
You know, I just remember the media exploding, and it was a really big deal, and it was really exciting for all of us to see, because here's this kid that we all love and grew up around, and there he is, you know, making his dreams come true and accomplishing all these big things that no one in the world has ever done before.
On the climb to Everest, you go through various villages, most of which have monasteries in them and monks that have lived in those mountains for thousands of years. Johnny had a big affection for the monks and their practice and their dedication to a lifestyle. And he'd spent some time in Bhutan in the Himalayas and skateboarded with some monks, some children who went to the monastery, and they'd never seen a skateboard before, and he taught them how to skate. Johnny, in particular, was very attuned to the locals and the feeling of being in the mountains. And there's pictures of us being blessed by the monks before we climbed, just for good intentions and also for safety. There was a lot of sort of undertones of people saying, that's too dangerous, what are you doing with your son on Everest? And I respect that, I understand that, and I had concerns too, but his desire was so strong to be there. And so I felt if you took a sensible approach to it and you didn't try to go outside of your abilities, that you can make it relatively safe. But there's no guarantee.
There's aspects of this Mount Everest climb that I want to go over with you. You have to put there's a ladder that you have to lay out over the gorge, but it's changing and shifting every day. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, you know, that ladder was there in that picture, but a few days later it wasn't, because like an avalanche, you know, took it out or it opens.
Do you bring the ladder with you? Who's bringing the ladder up there? Is there a Home Depot at the summit?
It's very dangerous, and a lot of people don't make it through there. In fact, one of the things that happened on our trip was when we were leaving base camp prior to our summit attempt, there was a giant collapse of a piece of ice that fell about 5,000 feet onto the base of the ice fall. It swept across like a thunderous noise. And unfortunately, there was a few climbers who were out there at 10 in the morning, which is too late to be out in the ice fall. And one of them perished, was knocked out of his boots, and they never found him. His boots were sitting there.
It's enough to unnerve even an experienced guy like myself. So for Johnny, I think it was a big challenge.
When we summited Everest, it was just the most incredible day. It was beautiful, completely clear, which isn't always the case. And you can just see mountains as far as you can see, and you just know that you're at the highest place in the world. It was really magnificent.
He wasn't just climbing mountains to set records. He was climbing them to bring awareness to his favorite causes. People can think, well, this kid was just, you know, very privileged, and I don't think he looked at it that way at all. I mean, he understood how fortunate he was, but he wanted to bring awareness and do something good for the world.
I had moved away, and I had come back when I was 16 or 17, and this was just right around the time he was completing the 7 summits and climbing Everest. He had just climbed Everest. He was looking into swim the English Channel. And I knew he was back in Malibu. And so when I had come back here, it was pretty much just waiting to happen.
There was a period of time that Trevor and Johnny, they were just doing crazy stuff. Trevor and Johnny were, during this jackass stage that they grew up in, were really kind of looking for notoriety. They just, were making these videos for their friends and trying to get that notoriety.
From 16 or 17 on, it was just, I was the one that he would call when he wanted to get something adventurous done, and he was the one that I would call. For example, he would call me and tell me he wanted to go down the 101 freeway on a skateboard. Somehow through the woodworks, it just came out that, hey, there's a steep part of the 101 over there by Moore Park. Let's just get on the freeway, start in the shoulder, and just merge onto the freeway going full speed. The traffic is literally going like everyone's going 75 miles an hour at least. That's the steady speed. And all of a sudden he just merges into the freeway to, into the slow lane. He ended up getting so far ahead of me that I actually had to start catching up and, weaving through cars to get back up to him. And I remember, because I was driving a manual car, that I just remember just trying to shift as fast as I could to try to get up and, catch up to him on the freeway. He got up to pretty fast. I mean, I think he was going like 50 or 60 by the time we were up to speed, and he was just cruising down the freeway looking around, and people at cars are, waving and flipping him off and doing whatever, so that was a fun day.
I was having a lunch date, and my phone kept ringing and kept ringing. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And so finally, lunch ends, I get back in the car and I call Johnny. Johnny, what? And he said, the school might be calling you. I was standing on top of a car.
5, it's illegal and just plain dangerous tonight. The search is on to find a teenager caught street surfing in Malibu.
I turn on the TV and those things that flash. Malibu teen car surfing, news at 6. And I just looked at him and I said, are you kidding me?
Well, David, photographs of the person who was street surfing were taken by someone riding on a school bus here on Pacific Coast Highway. They were then sent to the Lost Hills Sheriff's Station, where authorities there were immediately alarmed and concerned that anyone would want to hop onto the roof of a car traveling at a high rate of speed.
Identified by classmates as Johnny Strange, this is the same kid said to be the youngest person to climb Mount Everest. But nobody is celebrating this hike.
It's like 6:30 in the morning. We're driving down PCH. Johnny gets bored, I guess, because, sitting in the passenger seat, he's like, Julia, he goes, there's a Malibu High School bus behind us. Let's moon them. And I'm like, these kids are 13 years old. You're not mooning them. He starts to stand up. I'm like, Johnny, stop, hitting him while I'm driving. Stop, Johnny. He goes, okay, fine, I won't moon them. Rolls down the window, looking at the bus, climbs out. I'm just like, what, Johnny, what the fuck? Screaming.
I was down in court and somebody said, I think that's your son on the national news. And, unfortunately it was. But, one of the discussions we had about that is I said, Johnny, what you don't want to happen is to have copycats, because other people could do that and someone could get hurt. And you better tell people not to do this.
Hey, how's it going? It's Johnny Strange. I would like to apologize for car surfing earlier today. I really regret it, because if anybody ever followed my actions and did what I did and got hurt, I would forever feel responsible.
I'm sure he threatened his life to never do it again. And then, of course, I heard afterwards that he had done it numerous times. I was like, Johnny, I'm so glad I didn't know. But all these things, all these canyons that I didn't know about that he was skateboarding, and it's always the same thing, faster, faster. And then it just hit me that this kid couldn't get enough speed.
All right, here we are, Malibu, California, Canyon Road.
pretty sunset. But we're not in Malibu for the sunset. We're here because that guy is about to break the world record on a skateboard.
Filming.
I'm filming.
All right.
Shadow from the darkness, rising up again. Never knew it can be so cold. Fire underneath my skin. Can you hear the storms coming? I'm a silver and blooded. There's a spark in me. There's a spark in me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm listening to this song right now, and it's like a really sick song, so we're gonna need to go a lot faster.
All right.
They say I'm a dangerous man. Better run fast as you can. Don't you look back. Every bone in my body's bad.
Studies of adolescents show that if I think my friends are watching, I do stuff that is totally different than if they would never know what I did. And the sad thing is, the adolescent period involves 2 to 3 times the likelihood of having permanent damage to your body or death due to something that an adolescent did. When you have this feeling inside of you that gives you a feeling of being alive, we call that sensation, among other things, awe. Because awe is such an important emotion, there may be individuals that only get awe with risk-taking.
Let's go. Let's go right now.
Those individuals need to realize that it comes with a potential price.
They say I'm a dangerous man.
Oh, shit. Slow down quick, You all right? Are you okay?
Oh, shit.
My whole dream, I always wanted to fly. So when I was 18, I left everything behind and moved to Las Vegas because I heard there's base jumpers there, and I learned everything I could about base jumping and wingsuit flying.
It was that golden minute of turning 18, and he could jump. He didn't need mountaineering anymore because you could be 12 and climb a mountain, but you had to be 18 to put on a parachute and jump out of an airplane.
When Johnny first came to Vegas, he definitely had a goal in mind. He walks into the drop zone and basically says that he knows a mutual friend and that he wants to learn to base jump. He cut right to the chase. There was no hem-hawing around or trying to get to know each other, anything like that. He was like, this is what I want to do. Can you help me do it? And this mutual friend of ours says, you're the guy that can help me.
Parachute was built in 1980. I hope it still works. Check it.
When it comes to learning base jumping, there's opinion upon opinion upon opinion on how it's supposed to be done. Basically, you are trying to mitigate as much risk as you can by learning all the fundamentals to jumping leading into wingsuit base jumping. Number one is you learn how to skydive. As an 18-year-old, Johnny was incredibly talented physically. He was incredibly body aware, which helped him progress really quickly in skydiving. You could tell he had this idea and that he was ready to get it done. After you learn to skydive, then at that point, you're gonna learn to base jump. So you're gonna go huck yourself off a safe object, which we would consider like a bridge or even a hot air balloon.
With the base jumping thing, I didn't know how dangerous it was, and I didn't push it. And he started to talk about how dangerous it was and would try to show me the videos, and I never would watch them. I couldn't.
All right, yeah, I'm ready. Out of here.
Yeah, he was just wired differently than most of us.
You got high on life, just high on adrenaline, maybe you'd call it. But the thing was, for him to get that feeling of adrenaline rush or just fun was 10 steps over past the line.
Yeah.
And once he accomplished something,
He had to take it.
he would go to the next level.
There's
It's
never a
like,
stopping
okay, cool.
point.
I did that, and now I'm gonna try this next time.
Did you see that one video where he's on the needle in Vegas or whatever that is?
Oh, yeah, that
thing-
was so crazy.
The radio tower.
He's just climbing up a radio tower and
All by himself.
like
He climbed up it at like 4 in the morning, and then the sun's coming up, and he's finally at the top like a couple hours later. You guys need a picture. It's a ladder that's like however tall, like 1,200 feet, just straight up, just a ladder. And he just spent all morning just climbing up it. And he finally gets to the top, and it's sunny out already, and he jumps off.
No part of it was he in fear or scared or any of that. So half the footage is like him running and just like trying to get away and then pack his parachute.
that was crazy.
Didn't he use like car mats to throw over barbed wire to get through like one
Yeah.
fence to get to the next?
His brain's wired differently, you know. It's what made him jump off cliffs. It's what made him climb the tallest mountains. It's what made him surf huge waves, ride a skateboard down a hill that's way too steep, you know.
Johnny knew no bounds. He would just do it. And at the time he started jumping, he was also after the goal of the Explorers Grand Slam, which is the 7 summits plus the North and South Pole. So Johnny went to the South Pole. It is incredibly cold down there, but Johnny being Johnny, but the next thing was to go to the North Pole, and he wanted to jump out of a helicopter, parachute out, and land.
My name's Johnny Strange, and I'm here to skydive into the North Pole. If everything goes right, it should be good. Because if not, I'm gonna smash into the ground.
I was dead set against it because a group of guys had tried to do it at the South Pole, and their parachutes froze, and they never opened. So all these people jumped, and you know, that was a complete catastrophe.
Everybody could say, oh yeah, it's dangerous, you could get hurt, you're an idiot. But everybody dies eventually, and I'm just trying to live my life to the fullest.
The night before he was to take off, Johnny was real excited, and I sat down, we talked a bit.
One of the problems, as you may or may not know, at the poles, there's less atmosphere than there is at the equator. So if you're using an altimeter, it's going to be off, and it could be off by several thousand feet.
One of the things I was trying to stress at that point was, you only live once. Let's make it good, but let's make it long at the same time.
You mentioned earlier that you have a great love of life and that you want to be around having fun for many years. I salute that.
I want to be an old man with cool stories.
That was the only time that I was sick with worry, and that I just thought this can go horribly wrong.
He had 2 paraguides, if you will, Russian Soviet paraguides, who was also going to jump with him, make sure everything worked out all right. They had told him, don't do any funny stuff coming out of the helicopter. You know, it probably gave those guys a heart attack when they saw him do the backflip out the door.
So I had my cell phone with me, and I knew he was going to jump in an hour. And I thought, for the next hour, you know, I'm the mother of a son. I'm the mother of a son. How am I going to feel in an hour if I'm not?
You're alive, my friend.
Sure enough, the phone rings.
Hey, Mom, it's Johnny. Just wanted to call you and tell you I'm still alive. I'm at the North Pole now. Just got dived in.
So that's another record that he has. But I just remember thinking, I never, ever really want to do this again. I don't want to be in this position.
So I first met Johnny while skydiving in Paris Valley, California.
I didn't actually know anything about his accomplishments until, man, years later. I just was jumping with him, and he was a fun guy to be around. He was just a regular guy out having fun. But Johnny was fast. The thrill of flying, it's really like no other. Just having the freedom when you jump out, feeling the pressurization of a suit inflate around your entire body. It's so surreal that until you do it, you're not really gonna fully grasp the concept of what it's like to use your body like a fighter jet, essentially.
In my own opinion, I can make it as safe as I want to make it, as long as I can control the science. If it's bad weather, I don't jump. And I try to control the variables. And the reason I think why I love it isn't because it's dangerous, it's because it's physics at its purest form. And I love being able to be a part of science and the leading edge.
Once you've learned to base jump, once you've learned to skydive, now you can introduce a wingsuit. And in this stage, you're talking 200 skydives. So you're almost talking a year in the sport before you will ever put on a wingsuit. That's basically how you progress. It's a really long, slow process of kind of training wheels to training wheels off to, riding your bike on the highway.
So none of us could really figure out how he was paying for things. And then we found out that I guess he was making money posting these videos. We didn't pay for his wingsuiting. He was sponsored, and the parachute he was wearing, a sponsor had given to him. I guess his suits were sponsored. He'd pack a suitcase to go somewhere, and there would be one pair of pants and one shirt at the most. He needed very little, so if you don't require much, you don't need to make a lot. And he made enough to allow him to do his sport.
Have fun, stay safe, don't do anything stupid.
Johnny's introduction to the sport started off slow and proper. He went to France to learn to fly some wingsuits out there, and that was pretty respectable then. That was kind of the progression that people were leaning towards. You have to keep in mind with Johnny's progression that at that time, there was a lot more cowboy-ish stuff going on. There was a lot more people pushing the limits before they were ready. And who's to say if anyone's ready or not? But after his first trip to Europe, he started trying to progress extremely quickly, in my opinion, and that's my opinion.
In this sport, there's just no room for error. Like, no one can be 100% of the time. And when you're not, bad things happen.
Base jumping is such an underground sport and unregulated that no one really knows how many jumpers, but there's not many of us. So say if there's like 2,000 people who base jump, maybe there's, less than 1,000 people who wingsuit base jump. And out of the people who wingsuit base jump, say maybe there's, less than 200 or less than 100 who fly proximity. And out of the people who fly proximity, there's not very many people who fly lines. So you're flying really close the whole time. And that's where it gets super dangerous and super high level. And that's like the 1% of the 1%.
If you're proximity flying, that's what's going to give you that sense of speed. Proximity flying is when you're flying in close proximity to terrain, trees, rocks. You can fly them as fast as 200 miles an hour overall speed. Not only in your wingsuit and you're on a cliff, but you are going to fly towards the mountain instead of away from it.
And it's just the most incredible feeling when you're flying next to a cliff and you just have this superhuman feeling. And for that, whatever minute flight, there's just nothing else in life matters just besides this moment. You're truly present. It's the best feeling in the world.
We talked about the danger in base jumping all the time. In fact, I think it mostly got brought up because he would be intrigued by somebody that got hurt or died. Or I would bring it up, watching his footage going like, dude, this is way too close like to the edge, basically, like, you know, I don't know. It just seemed like.
It would be interesting, honestly, to look into the brain chemistry of base jumpers and daredevils like that, because there must be something different. I, for one, would never, and the majority of people would never. There has to be something.
Preliminary studies suggest that the reward circuit, which is a vertically distributed circuit, is mediated by a substance called dopamine. When dopamine is released, the feeling inside of you is like this: that was meaningful. I'm gonna do that again. But for some people, what really secretes dopamine is novelty. And for them, what the novelty is danger. It's really about, I've pushed this thing to the edge. And for some people, they really need to do something near the edge of death.
This is video of local base jumper Fernando Gonçalves diving off a cliff in Brazil. And the very next day, he was killed making a similar jump.
An American base jumper plunges to his death in Turkey. A tragic end to a newlyweds day of base jumping.
The extreme sports superstar was killed Saturday while trying a dangerous jump in Yosemite National Park.
You know, there's been almost 50 people died flying wingsuits off cliffs in the last 18 months.
Johnny would always text me when somebody died or got hurt base jumping, just because I think it would remind himself, you know, of the risks. And I also think that maybe he was warning his loved ones how dangerous it is.
Johnny would talk to me about base jumping all the time, to a point where I ended up learning the equipment that you use for base jumping, the sponsors for base jumping, the places where you can base jump. So I was on board with sort of everything he did, and there wasn't a day that I wasn't behind him. But Johnny did talk about the dangers of it because he was fixated on this list.
So what are we seeing here?
This is a list of everyone who's passed base jumping. But this is from, you know, the beginning of base jumping all to now. Every death that's happened base jumping.
And what do you see when you click on one of those things?
You know, so you click it, and this one just happened, so it's updating, but it shows, you know, nationality, where he died, how he died. These are all pretty recent. I mean, this is last week, you know, July 24th, July 21st, July 21st, July 10th, July 4th, July 3rd. So that's all this month.
And there are people who died in those days.
Yep.
It affects everyone differently when these type of losses happen in our community, you know, and you start questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it.
I think people who proximity wingsuit, that sport, how it evolves from, you know, jumping off a bridge, jumping out of an airplane, to, okay, now I'm gonna jump off of a cliff. Oh, now only not am I gonna jump off a cliff, I'm gonna see how close I can fly along the cliff. These guys just keep upping the ante. So if I look at someone who does drugs and first they could do, I guess, 1 line of Coke and all of a sudden now they need 2 lines of Coke. Well, is that the same thing with wingsuiting? It's, you know, the ante just keeps going up.
The wingsuit flying, when he first told me he was gonna do it, you could never say, Johnny, don't do that, or it scares me, or do you know how risky it is, or you've heard about these other people that weren't successful at it. Holding him back wasn't an option.
I know that you certainly were not gonna tell Johnny he wasn't gonna do it.
Johnny is incredibly focused and strong-minded when it comes to uncomfortable situations, but he's very impatient as far as his learning process. So I took a step back from Johnny, kind of just a step away so he could learn a bit on his own.
Cheers. Cheers, boys. Best day ever.
Switzerland, France, and Norway are my favorite places to go, but there's really You know, there's places all over to jump. You just gotta go find them. And there's tons of unjumped locations. There's a lot of adventure waiting out there, and I intend to go find it.
I met Johnny first time probably about 2 years ago. Definitely one of a kind. Yeah, Johnny's definitely special. Super positive, so full of energy. And he's just good at everything he did. He had said something on Facebook a few months before this trip. Because he wasn't able to rent a car in Europe, he was trying to figure out what to do. And so I offered to drive around in my van. And then everywhere we went, he'd throw out his tent and camp. And then I would sleep in the van. In the morning, we'd pack up, throw everything in the van, and go hike and fly. So that's what we were going to do for the 2 weeks that he was there.
About a month before he went to Europe, he had told me about this trip pretty briefly. And he said that he was going to Europe with a friend, and they were going to travel around in a van and hike all the, you know, biggest peaks and fly off of them. But when he talked about it, something just didn't like seem right. Like he said it really quick, which caught my attention. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to Europe and find the biggest mountains and jump off them. I'm like, okay, like I know that there's more that goes into that. So he sounded pretty like rushed about it. And I later found out that he wasn't really talking to anyone about it. And then about 2 weeks before the trip, he was going to jump out of a hot air balloon. That's how, you know, Johnny was training for these base jumps, is because when you're floating in a balloon, there's no forward wind speed like in a plane, and there's no any air like in a helicopter, because you're just floating there. It's silent, and it feels like you're just standing on top of the biggest cliff in the world. So he calls me. I'm like, well, how did it go? And he's like, I had the gnarliest, craziest malfunction of my life. And he was like, it was, you know, so sketchy. You know, it was really close. It was so sketchy, man. It was so sketchy. Like, I almost died.
He was headed for the ground and losing altitude quick, and his parachute just wasn't working.
And he's telling me all about what had happened, and you know, and it was such a close call, and you know, and this was about 2 weeks before, and then you know, he was driving me up to the train station, and something just didn't seem right. So I stopped him. I said, Johnny, you know, what's up? I said, what's going on? Like, you know, there's something doesn't seem right. You don't seem okay. And he's like, oh, no, I'm fine. But something, he just seemed down on himself. He seemed like something was, you know, not okay. And I knew he was heading off on his trip, and I didn't know when the next time I was gonna see him was. And I had my camera in my backpack, and so I just decided to pull out my camera and film a clip of us.
All right, Johnny is dropping me off at the train station. I'm going train hopping. He's going to Europe to go wingsuiting.
And we're just gonna be hardcore in charge the rest of our lives and give no fucks.
You heard it from the man himself. But cruising down this highway, living life, enjoying it to the fullest.
Every day.
Yeehaw!
And then about 4 days later, this was probably about 2 days before his trip to Europe, he calls me and he's like, Trevor. I'm like, what? He's like, dude, I lost my passport. And he's laughing. And he was like laughing about the whole thing. And I stopped him on the phone. And I was like, Johnny, I was like, do not go on this trip. I said, these are signs. I said, these are signs, you know, something out there is telling you not to go.
When Johnny left to go to Switzerland, I drove him to the airport. I was actually going to meet his father halfway so he could say goodbye to his dad. And on the way, Johnny and I hadn't had a lot of time to talk before this trip because his sister had just gotten married 10 days before, and it was a really busy time for all of us. So finally, I was alone in the car with him, and I said, Johnny, you know, if something happens to you, And he stopped and he looked at me and he said, something doesn't happen. And I said, okay, if you die, it's not just you, it's all of us. None of us are ever going to be okay again. No one you love is ever going to be okay again. And I looked at Johnny and he was crying. And I said, Johnny, you're crying. Don't go. Don't you think this is a bad idea? Why are you crying? I've never seen you cry. And he said, he just sort of mumbled and put his head down. And I said, Johnny, you're crying. And then I started crying. And that was right at the point where we were going to meet Brian. And we got out of the car and I hugged him and we were both crying. And Brian said, why are you guys crying? And I looked at Brian and said, don't let him go.
So he got out of the car and he had tears in his eyes and he said, Dad, I love you. And I said, why are you going? You know, why are you doing this? Is there anything I can do to stop you from going on this trip? And he said, no.
There's a jump in Switzerland. The name of the mountain is Gitchen. It's 2,200 meters. You can fly proximity fly terrain the entire time. Gitchen is, it's a perfect jump. I was planning on meeting up with Johnny at Gitchen. We hadn't jumped together at least in a year at that point, so I was excited to meet up with him.
It was already late in the evening by the time we got there, so we were waiting until the next morning to jump. And yeah, we spent the evening in a little cafe at the landing area at the bottom, right on the edge of a lake, looking up the terrain, like maps of the terrain to plan out where we were gonna fly, watching videos of other people who had jumped it to see how the exit is and where you could potentially fly. And we ended up camping at the bottom of a little cable car. And so he threw out his little $30 Walmart tent that he was so proud of. Here's Johnny, who's climbed Everest, and he's sleeping in a $30 Walmart tent that was actually lopsided. One side, one of the poles was longer than the other, and we just couldn't get it to stand up properly. So we were laughing about that hysterically, like the night before going to sleep. But yeah, we managed to get it set up, slept in it, and then in the morning, yeah, threw everything in the van and went up for the hike.
We had been texting the night before. He was extremely excited about this jump. He had heard a lot about it. By this time, I had told him a lot about it. And he knew it was a really special flight.
It was a beautiful morning. Some puffy little clouds here and there and some stuff hanging on the side of the mountain, but nothing that was gonna stop us from jumping.
We always look at weather forecasts the night before, and we saw that it was windy, and that was gonna affect the area of Gitchen. So we decided, we changed our plan. We're gonna go to a different jump because of the winds. I texted Johnny saying, hey, our plans have changed. They still planned on going to Gitchen, and they went.
Yeah, game time.
So we started somewhere around 8:30 or 9 in the morning. There's a little wooden box attached to a cable to bring supplies up and down to the farms on the mountain. That took us up maybe a few hundred feet or so, and the rest of the way you have to hike up. Actually, we didn't see anyone else on the mountain that day, so it was just the two of us. Yeah, on a beautiful mountain with valley below, a lake, snow-capped mountains in the distance. Yeah, it was beautiful. And then about 2/3 of the way up, we started to feel some wind, pretty gusty, but it was also lulling for several seconds to a minute at a time. So when it was blowing, it was blowing pretty hard, but it would also stop for long periods at a time.
A lot of times, especially when it comes to wind, you have lulls, like waves, like crests and troughs of waves. You'll kind of mentally time the lulls, which means when the wind is blowing at its hardest to when it's blowing its softest.
The technique for jumping in wind is to jump out and stay penciled to keep your wings closed, because with no relative airspeed, you're jumping off in static air with your wings open, the wind can be enough to actually flip you over. And so we kept discussing that over and over while we were getting ready, and then on the exit again while we were standing and waiting for a lull in the wind, about jumping out and staying closed for the first few seconds until you had some airspeed, and then opening the wings and flying.
This jump for Johnny was the shortest start that he had done. And what I mean by short start is when you exit a cliff, you have a certain amount of time before there's ground that you would hit if you didn't open your parachute. That can be anywhere from 5 seconds to 12 seconds. So at Gitchin, it is a technical jump. It's 6 seconds to impact. If you stand on the edge of Gitchin and you drop a rock 90 degrees straight down, it's gonna impact in 6 seconds. The suits take at least 2 to 3 seconds to inflate to start flying. So that's putting you extremely low to the ground already from the beginning.
Yeah, so we waited for quite a few minutes, fully geared up, cameras filming, waiting to jump, waiting for a lull in the wind. It was fully confident about it. I mean, it was just loving life. We both were. We were both on top of the world. Everything was perfect until it suddenly wasn't anymore.
The phone rang, and it was 5:30 in the morning. It was Brian's phone, and he wasn't answering it. And I said, "It's Johnny, answer the phone." And I knew before he answered the phone, I knew before anyone said anything. And when Brian answered the phone, he was doubled over, and I couldn't hear what the person on the other line was saying. But I could tell the person wouldn't say anything besides he's been in an accident.
It was 8:30 or 7:30 Salt Lake time. So when I saw my ex-husband's house number on my car screen, and I just kind of knew, and I answered it. Normally, you know, if Brian would probably say hello, and I just said, "What? Why are you calling me at this hour?" And I knew. And I don't know how I got over in the traffic. I mean, flying down the freeway. And I couldn't stop screaming. I couldn't breathe. And thankfully a cop drove by and I flashed my lights, and, you know, this man pulled over, backed his car up, and then he tried to take the keys out of my car. And I said, "No, because you'll disconnect my call." And I don't know what happened after that.
I didn't think about Johnny. I thought maybe it was, you know, my family or my dad or whatever. I just didn't know, but I knew that when I was looking at the phone, something was wrong. So I answered it, and it's my brother, and he's just like crying and crying and crying, and he told me, "You know, you want to hear some shitty news?" And I was like, "What's going on?" And he goes, "Johnny died."
As soon as I got the news, my first concern was getting to Johnny. I had to go get up with Alex, so we drove straight to meet Alex, and we were planning on identifying the body and all that.
It's alright if you cry. I'll be the first to say it's just a matter of time till we all get there someday. And are you strong enough to stand alone? Brace yourself for the worst. And are you walking down a lonely road, waking up alone? Well, life is grand, yeah, but love is hard. And we all have to learn somewhere before we can crawl. And are you strong enough to stand alone? Brace yourself for the worst. And are you walking down the lonely road, waking up alone?
It's nice to finally meet you.
A lot of questions for you.
Yeah, I just wish it was under different circumstances.
So tell, one, I want to know his last words, and then I want to know exactly how that flight went. Maybe, you know.
He was going to be leading off, so we waited for a lull, and then he asked, all right, ready? I go, yeah, ready, good. All right, and then he gave the countdown, and he jumped off first. As soon as he jumped, I could see he was tilted slightly. That maybe it wasn't going to be a perfect exit.
And was that because of wind or just a bad jump?
I think just a bad jump, because at that point, like as you're pushing off, he didn't have his wings open, so it wasn't the wind pushing him at that point. As soon as he pushed off, he was tilted slightly to the left. And so as I go off, I can see that he's in quite a bit of trouble, because he's definitely going low, like going head low, as we say. So it wasn't until I watched the video afterwards to show the helicopter rescue services where he was that I realized how bad the exit actually was. I didn't realize that he had flipped all the way over. Because he flipped all the way over vertical and straight down for the first 4 to 5 seconds, that he didn't quite have the momentum and the lift over the suit to be able to fly it out. And it was the 8-second mark when he.
So you saw him and you filmed him hit. What are you doing then?
Well, I had to fly it out. I mean, I had no choice. It crossed my mind for a second. It crossed my mind for a second to open my parachute and land right there, but I knew there was no chance.
Yeah.
So all that's going to do is put me on the side of the mountain and not be able to necessarily get rescue there quickly, or I don't know what. So I had to fly it out, and I flew for a whole minute and a half before opening my parachute.
What are you flying for a minute and a half? What are you thinking when you're flying?
That was an out-of-body experience for me. I was screaming in flight because I knew it had happened. Opened pretty high after a minute and a half of flying. and then landed in the same spot where we had planned to land, at the restaurant where we'd been hanging out the night before, and pretty much collapsed in the landing area.
A letter from Johnny. I'm not scared of flying. I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of loving these people. I'm scared of the day they lose me. I'm scared because I know they'll hurt. I know they'll miss me, and I know they'll think that I didn't care enough about them to stop jumping. That's the worst part. I wish I could make them understand without having them jump. If I had a son of my own, I would pray inside that he never jumped. But once he did, I would know that there is nothing I can possibly do to stop him.
Every time I would text him something related to like base jumping, he just wouldn't respond. Like on July 20th, I said, every time you post a status, I get scared. He didn't respond. I said, hey, Jojo, and he said, hi, Ken. I said, how did your friend die? And he said, rock climbing. And I said, he fell? And he said, no, the rock shot him. He was always, when it came to death, he would just mess around with it. On July 22nd, I said, please stop base jumping. And he just didn't respond to those. And then he posted somewhere that he was like in Russia, so I thought he was in Russia, and I said, how's Russia? And he said, I'm in Switzerland now. And we always talked about Instagram. I don't even think he followed me on Instagram. And I said, you never like my pics on Insta. How's Switzerland? And he said, you're an Insta. Did you tell your friends that you're not allowed to talk to boys? And I said, yeah, everyone knows. So you can see even here, I just asked, how's Switzerland? And he won't even acknowledge that. He just refused to talk to me about anything that was real. I don't know, like in my spiritual side, I believe that subconsciously he must have known. And I just think that it was just like too hard for him to look at his little sister and his older sister, who like love him more than anyone on the planet, and Piper, his girlfriend, and say like, I'm doing this and I know that I could die. And if he subconsciously knew that he was gonna die, like how could he respond? What's he gonna say? He wasn't gonna stop.
Wingsuiting, and I don't know if proximity makes it worse, but wingsuiting is so addictive that you can't stop. And look at Alex. 6 of Alex's friends have died this year. Alex still flies.
Johnny wouldn't have wanted me to stop. None of my friends that have died would have wanted me to stop. And what we do is such an amazing thing, pioneering human flight. So it's such a beautiful thing, and it's given me so much that I don't see myself stopping.
It's supposedly more addictive than heroin.
It's like we're superhuman. We can do something that most people dream of. Literally everyone, all kids have the dream of flight, and we actually do it.
He didn't like being called an adrenaline junkie. He was offended when I even brought up addiction and that maybe that's what's happening. Certainly, he was addicted to that feeling. Absolutely.
And there's nothing you can do to stop these people. His conflict was that He must have known it was going to kill him, but he couldn't stop.
I know not why my son was taken from me and my family at the age of 23. He had so much more to do, so many more fights to take on, and so many more mountains to climb and fly off. But in those 23 years, his spirit, his courage, and his smile touched so many people. People from Antarctica to Russia, from Nepal to Patagonia, from the North Pole to the South Pole. Johnny loved life, and he loved all of you here today. While I am not and would not encourage young people to go wingsuit flying off mountaintops, I do ask that you choose courage over fear, to live a life of adventure, of purpose and passion, and choose a life of love over the love of ease. There are so many things on this planet worth fighting for. We should, like Johnny, believe in the limitlessness of who we are and the possibility of what we can accomplish. I hope that that will be the legacy of Johnny Strange. Thank you.
You know, everybody handles things differently. You know, when I have a friend who dies, I open a beer and, you know, rest in peace. But everyone has their own ways of handling it. You're not supposed to focus on the death, you gotta focus on the life. I believe in a higher power, but I have different views on it. I think people get so caught up in religion and who's right and who's wrong. If you want to be, you know, a good person in God's eyes, you got to go out there and you got to try to make a difference. And it doesn't matter what you believe, you have to make a difference, you know, for good.
You know, the newspaper articles and everything after Johnny passed away was, you know, Johnny lost his life. Was it worth it to do what he did? And I don't think Johnny could have lived it any other way. So I think when somebody tries to put a value on, you know, was it worth it to jump out of this or take this risk or that risk or to push yourself beyond what may be humanly possible, I think there are certain people that they don't know another way to live.
You know, if you don't have some risk in your life, you're not really experiencing life, because life is risky. None of us are going to get out of it alive. And, you know, to be a ship in the harbor all your days is safe, but that's not what the ship is for. The ship is to sail on the ocean. The ship is to have adventures and to travel the world and to be in storms and to, you know, ride the tide and to have waves crash on you. They're built for that. I don't have a death wish, and I don't think Johnny did either. I think he had a life wish.
I mean, he was always so worried about becoming somebody that he wasn't. Like, he never wanted to be a realtor who once was a base jumper and climbed mountains. He didn't want to be like a banker. There was, like, he felt so constrained by that. And so knowing that the peace he must feel and knowing that he got to go out as this, like, complete legend.
The smile on Johnny's face when he lands, I mean, like, joy was just oozing out of him because he had a good flight. And some people get that joy once, or like the deep, pure joy once or twice in their life, and Johnny had it every time he jumped.
You know, in the end, I think that Johnny lived his life exactly how he wanted to live it. And when he was only 23 when he died, and so I get really sad about that. But ultimately, there's a lot of comments by friends of Johnny saying he lived more in his 23 years than a lot of people do in their lifetime. So I think about him obviously warmly as a son, but I think ultimately that Johnny was Johnny and lived his life to the fullest, and he would have, I think he's happy about that.